Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Johngy podcast. I, of course, am who else but Tommy Ellison with me, as always, coming to us from Skokie, Illinois, from Johngy'sBeat.com, the man on the beat himself, Mr. Jonathan Adolf Robleski.
Oh, that one hurts. That one hurts.
Why? What's wrong with Adolf?
It's not a real good name.
Well, you know, there was more than one Adolf in the world, buddy.
No, even so.
Not every Adolf is a bad person.
You've had better names for me. Let's put it that way.
Well, when I get it right, just let me know.
I will when you get it right.
I'm just shooting.
You're over 52 so far.
So how you doing, buddy?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. We've had a little lag in doing the show, unfortunately, which is it's on my end. It's having some remodeling done here in Castle Else, and it's great.
You're making a big recording studio for us and our guests.
Soundproof, the whole thing. Yeah.
Recreating the Merv Griffin set.
Yeah. But it's cool. I'm basically getting a whole new apartment. I've lived in this place for so long that it's just outdated compared to every one of the other units, because at some point most people move after a few years or so, but not me. I love it here. So, but it's cool, and getting a lot of cool new flooring and fixtures and stuff like that.
Some shag carpeting?
No, I'm gonna see if I can get some mirrors on the ceiling in here though, and I think that
champagne on ice. We are all prisoners here, not of our own device.
All right, buddy.
Evil.
Once again, he brings us to a grinding halt.
Well, then what better way to pump us back up than our guest?
Yeah, let's just get into it, because you're already sinking this ship. So
I'm excited about
who do we got today, John?
I have a woman who I interviewed in 2017 to the National. Her name is Sooz Lulgjuraj, but everyone probably knows her better as Sooz. She is an expert in the sports card industry, and she's a woman that I followed for years. As I said, I finally got to meet her in 2017. I did a short interview there. I mentioned her to you. You were excited about it. I pitched it to her. She graciously agreed to come on, and we got to do a little bit of a longer form interview with her.
Yeah.
Fascinating woman. Aside from that Yankees fan stuff, stealing our Anthony Rizzo, but still, I still deeply respect her.
Absolutely. Well, with all that said, let's get to our guest.
For the Johngy podcast, we are happy to welcome into our studio Sooz Lulgjuraj, otherwise known as Sooz. How are you, Sooz?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
I interviewed you back in 2017 at the National. You were very kind. You were extremely busy that day, but you gave me some time. That was kind of a bucket list interview for me back then. So I wanted to thank you publicly for that as well.
Oh, I remember that. It was standing on the nice plush carpet at the Topps booth. Exactly.
Now, you've done everything in the card business. How did you originally get started?
Yeah, so I've been a card collector. Like, it's one of those things, like, I've been a card collector my whole life. I remember collecting cards as a kid, and as I got older and got my first job, instead of I'm 16 years old and my money's going towards buying baseball cards. So I've been collecting a long time. I was a sports writer for 15 years. And part of while I was doing that, I created a blog about trading cards, because I was able to sort of mesh my two loves of collecting baseball cards and writing. And through the blog, it's you meet a lot of people, and this is now 15, 18 years ago. So a lot different than social media is now, where yes, the internet still connected you, but it wasn't that instantaneous like you have on today's social media.
Right.
But still made a lot of connections, met people at Beckett, started doing freelance work at Beckett. Did that for a couple of years. saw a job opening at Tops and had, through the course of my time in Beckett, reached out to people I knew at Tops, applied for a job, literally got the job. Worked at Tops then for 5 years. And that was it. Like that blog, starting that blog, it was like, I want to say like 2004, almost
Yeah.
20 years ago. Really, who knew it was going to take me to where I am now, where now I'm the marketing manager at CSG, where we grade and authenticate sports cards.
Oh, cool.
Crazy.
What were you doing when you worked at Tops?
I had two different jobs while I was there. My first job, I was a sports editor, where essentially the biggest part of the job was like picking the images that went on the fronts of the cards.
Oh, that's a big deal.
It was fun. It was great. I loved
Yeah.
it. And then less than a year later, I moved over to the marketing team because a lot of my skills in journalism translated obviously very well into marketing. And which is great and crazy because it launched an entire new career path for me.
Yeah, it's probably something you didn't consider an option going into adulthood, you know?
No, I was like, my dream was to be like, a baseball beat writer. Yeah, that's what I thought about growing up, being a baseball beat writer. But that grind is crazy, and I covered the Phillies for several years. I did not travel a lot, but I did travel occasionally to cover them. But it was a lot of fun. But admittedly, like the older you get, like I don't want to go to the ballpark from like 1 p.m. to like get home and get like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I want
Yeah.
to sleep,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot more work. People just see everybody at the game and think, wow, that's a great job. They don't realize the 2 to 3 hours before and the 2 hours after the game and the travel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've seen it. I was just gonna say, I've seen that with you, John, with everything, like when you cover C2E2, it's not like you just go and hang out for a while. You're there
I just
all
hang with
day
celebrities and
for 3 days. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
One of the things we really wanted to ask you is, in this pandemic, it seems that the hobby has kind of bounced back a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so during the pandemic, people were home and there wasn't much to do. So a lot of people like pulled out those old cards, trying to reconnect with things they did when they were younger. And trading cards, sports cards were at the forefront of that. So it really exploded during the pandemic, and a lot of new people came into the hobby. And I'll say that it's probably settled down since. Now that things are as normal as they're gonna ever be, I feel like at this point.
Right.
You're out, you take vacations, you're going away, you're going to concerts, you go to movies, there's a lot more things to do. So there's still a lot of new people into the hobby, but it's not at the point of where it was during the pandemic, where like to me, even during the 80s, like to me, that was an all-time high because as we discussed earlier, that connection with social media, allowed a lot of people to meet new people who were into the hobby who maybe they never would have met otherwise. Like I be friends with people in another country because of like Twitter and YouTube and Instagram and everything that I never would have ever spoken to before. And we collect the same types of stuff, and it's really great. But the pandemic really allowed people to enter the hobby, enjoy it, and you found a new love for it.
Where do you think it's going in the next few years?
I think it's going to be an interesting thing. I don't know the answer to that. And I'm not big a person on speculating just because it's not in my nature. But you have Fanatics, who is really starting to kind of shape Tops into what they want it to be. And I think Fanatics, what they do with the hobby moving forward is going to shape a lot of what happens with that hobby. I don't know what that's going to be. I don't know what it will look like. But I do think that they're going to end up shaping a lot of what happens on the secondary market. But I'll say this because I'm a longtime collector, so I believe in the collectors and the people in the hobby, that the hobby will always be what the people make it to be, like what the collectors make it out to be.
Well, I was going to ask, being something that's physical that you have to go and purchase, and it's not something that, because, so many things have gone digital these days, and there's comic books and things like that and everything. But do you think that will affect the future going forward? So like there's established people like yourself who have been doing this their whole lives, but like let's say a 10-year-old today, like I would imagine it would take someone like you, who maybe is like someone's mother or aunt or something like that, or their uncle or whatever, to introduce them to the idea of card collecting and stuff. But I mean, other than that, though, I mean, I don't know how like the future lends itself to getting into the hands of the next generation. It's
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, I
Well, I
think
mean,
it's
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 always
a
been about like handing it down. It's always been that way, right?
yeah,
How
that's
did
true.
anybody ever really get into collecting? It's like, oh, they saw somebody older, like a grandparent or a parent or whomever who passed it down to them. So like, yeah, I have a 6-year-old son. He loves cards. He absolutely
Cool.
loves cards. He loves Pokemon, he loves baseball cards.
Hmm.
And he clearly got that collecting bug from mommy and daddy. We were
Yeah.
both big time collectors. But how else would he have learned? It's like with anything, with any sort of traditions or any hobbies, you pick it as a kid, you pick it up because the people around you are doing it.
No, that's very
Um,
true. Yeah.
yeah, and then as you get older, it's like sometimes, and then it's like you learn about it because now, like like 10-year-olds have phones, right? So they're on YouTube or Instagram, and they're seeing all these cool cards being pulled and all this content being created. So,
Mhm.
it's different, but it's still the same.
So the internet isn't necessarily detracting from it, and in some ways, it's actually giving more exposure to it to some people. So that's good.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's so much content being produced now around the hobby, more so in any other time that I have ever been a collector. There's hundreds, like I was gonna say dozens, if not hundreds of YouTube channels dedicated to just collecting, Instagram accounts. I mean, there's videos on TikTok about collecting, there's large swaths of people all across different social media platforms, and it just makes it easier to connect to like-minded folks who are into the hobby and be able to spread sort of like the gospel of collecting and how enjoyable it is.
What are your thoughts on rookie cards and parallel cards and all that? Like in terms of if you're a collector of, say a certain player like a Derek Jeter, and they come out with 15 parallels of one card, does that hurt the hobby a little bit in terms of like, now I got to collect all 15, but I might not be able to because they might be in limited quantity?
The beauty about collecting in this hobby is that you can collect what you want. It's there, like Tops or Panini or Upper Deck or me or anybody else. Nobody sets the rules on how and what you need to collect. So if you want to collect an entire rainbow, that's what we call it, then that's what you go for. If you just want to collect like the one card of like just the base card, that's what you can collect. If there's a certain parallel, like specifically you want to collect, that's what you can do. That's the beauty of it. Like it doesn't detract or hurt it, I feel, because it doesn't matter because because value and like secondary value, it's all a matter of like how many people want that, right? How many people
Sure.
gonna want that card. So if only 5 people want a certain card, that's great for those 5 people, but like it doesn't change anything. So you collect what you want, you enjoy what you like about the hobby, and like you can pick and choose the parts that you like. And if you don't like a million parallels, you don't have to collect all the parallels. If you don't like, I don't know, autograph cards, you don't have to collect autograph cards. There's a lot of product that does come out every single year. But not every product is made for every collector, and I think that's important. That's an important lesson for any like sort of newbie who comes into the hobby. It's like, I want to get into collecting, it's important to know that you don't have to collect everything, and really not everything is made for you, for your type of collector in mind either.
Yeah, I think what my frustration is, and this is me putting it on myself, like you said, it's I'm with anything I collect, I tend to be like a completionist. Like I feel like I need to have like this entire series of either action figures or whatever the case might be, and it's like even if there's ones I don't really want, I just want to have the whole thing. But I'm doing that to myself. Nobody's putting that on me. So
Sure, and there are a lot of people like that. Like I'm like that. I tend to be a completionist, but realistically, I know that there's certain things I'm never going to complete. So I
yeah,
don't try. I just try to have as much of it as I can. Like I am a
I've
huge Derek Jeter card collector. That's my collection. Is Derek Jeter cards. He has over 20,000 different cards.
Ooh.
I'm
yeah,
never.
you're
I
never gonna get
own.
all of them. Yeah.
I own a little over 10% of that, and you know what? I'm pretty happy with that collection. So
Mhm.
I don't worry about Like I'm
getting
never gonna
everything.
own 20,000 cards, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with age I've gotten better about that, but in my early 20s I was pretty bad. So I just had to get everything for whatever I was collecting.
What's the favorite card that you have? And is there any specific card like on your bucket list that you want to own?
My favorites change depending on the day. Like some days I like one over the others. There's 2014 Topps update of Derek Jeter. It was the first Derek Jeter card where I got to pull the image of when I was working at
Wow.
Topps. And I have a clear parallel, which is numbered to just 10, that like my husband bought me for the anniversary or something like that. So I love that card for lots of reasons. There is a Fleer card of like this day in history of his, where the day in history is July 11th, which happens to be my birthday, and there's an autographed version of that card. I love that
Wow.
card
Oh, cool.
for like personal reasons. So it depends on the day. It all kind of just like changes. And for a bucket list, there's a card from 1992. These little sunproof autographs that I'd love to own one day, but I don't ever see myself spending the money to own that card because of it's really expensive.
Yeah.
Now you didn't mention your own card though.
It's a cool card.
Well, she
Probably
already has
it might be
it.
my husband's favorite instead of mine.
What does your son think of that?
I gave him one of the cards, like, because they gave us these little minis, like not framed, because I had a card in 2017, Topps Allen and Ginter. They had employee autographs. So framed ones, 10 framed cards went into the product, and then they gave us little minis unframed, and I gave my son one. And I put it on his little nightstand, and I don't know where it is. So
he sold it.
Yeah, he might have. I mean, the last one sold for like $200 something. So
Oh yeah.
blame him if he sold.
Yeah, I checked eBay for them as well. I'm on the lookout for one eventually. Do you think being a woman in the industry, has that created hurdles for you in terms of like, other collector? I mean, now it's probably not nearly as much, but at least in the beginning, did it create obstacles for you?
Not as much as some of the stories I've heard from other women in the industry. I've definitely heard horror stories, but every once in a while there'd be something that popped up where you could tell there was sort of like, for less a way to put this, like internalized sort of misogyny that was happening. I remember one time I was interviewing somebody for a Beckett article, and initially I was like, hey, I want to talk to you about this article. And the first thing he said to me, he goes, do you even collect cards? And I was like, would you ever have asked that to a guy calling you?
Sure. Yeah.
Sometimes at card shows, what happens is I don't get like the attention a male collector might get at like he's stopping at a booth to talk to somebody. But like this weekend we went to a card show, and took my son, and he let me tell you, he knows sports. Like this kid knows more sports than anybody I know. He knows all the players, everything. He loves it.
That's
and he's
great.
looking through cards, and he was going through them. And I said, you could take 5 cards, like pick 5 cards. Like they were inexpensive. And the dealer was talking to him like he would have anybody. He's like, oh, which cards are you? He's like, oh, you want Josh Allen? He's like, oh, I have these Josh Allen here. And I appreciated it because it was like, even though he's just 6 years old, like I appreciated the fact that he treated him like
Sure.
anybody else. Because we've been to other booths where like one other time we had stopped at a table, and this is a different show, and we're looking, and the guy goes, oh, I don't have any Pokemon cards. And like I'm like, yeah, we weren't looking for Pokemon.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of stuff where like I'll go to table and maybe I don't get asked questions, or sometimes people will like try to like over explain a card to me. Like it's a chrome card, and they'll say like, oh, these are extra special, they're shiny. It's like, oh, are they? Cool. I literally made that card, but okay. Like sure. But it's like it's sort of these little things like that that have popped up more than I'd say other things for me. But having said that, like I've heard like some tough stories from like other female collectors.
And back when you were working at Topps, and you said you picked out some of the images, do the players have any input into that?
No, not really. Like every once in a while a player would probably stop by the office, and we do a fun thing, be like, hey, come pick out an image for your card. But no, it's pretty much just there's not enough time.
Are there ever any complaints from the players where they were like, I saw my card, and what's with that picture?
Very few. There's, I think maybe once or twice. There's like they'll see the cards if they're autograph cards, so then they have to sign them. I think I remember somebody sending one back and was like, "I'm not signing this card."
Yeah.
There was one I remember a complaint where there was like a fun picture from the All-Star game. A player was with like their kid, and that card was used, and the player didn't like that their kid was on.
Okay, was in. I can understand some
Yeah.
people.
So, but other than that, I haven't really heard many stories about that.
How many cards would you say you have?
Oh, I mean, probably 100,000 or more. Like that's between the both, like my husband and I.
Sure.
We're both collectors, but it's probably more than that. I don't even know how many Jeter cards I have. Never mind, like all of my cards.
Do you go for autograph cards too, or are you strictly kind of old school?
I go for a little bit of everything, like whatever sort of appeals to me, whatever I enjoy. It doesn't matter to me, time era, like what type of card, even teams. Like I'll collect non-Yankees cards, even though I'm a huge Yankees fan.
Well, that was going to be my next question. You are a huge Yankees fan, right?
Yeah.
So you said your favorite player was Derek Jeter. Now that he's not on the team, he retired. He'll be in the Hall. Is he in the Hall, or he'll be in the Hall?
Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame.
He's in the Hall. Who's your favorite player now?
I love Anthony Rizzo. I was a big fan of his when he was
that hurts.
Cubs. And when he got traded to the Yankees, I was super excited about it. And now
We weren't.
I know we were actually, the National was in Chicago that year. Was like, and we're at the booth in Chicago, and it gets announced that Rizzo gets traded to the Yankees, and I'm over there celebrating, and all the Chicago fans are like,
Yeah, no.
So
that one hurt.
That was my favorite. He's like my new PC. Like I collect his cards, but only like in a Yankees uniform. But I collect a lot of his cards.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. So if you just collect his Yankees cards, because
Yeah,
Jeter was only
I have
with
some nice like Cubs stuff, but that I had gotten it previously, but I don't really like seek his Yankee stuff.
Yeah.
So any projects you're working on? Anything in the near future happening?
Work wise or like collecting wise?
Either way, we're open to all.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at CSG now. It's like I said, they grade and authenticate sports cards for about 6 months. It's a little bit of a different world than from working at Topps and some of the previous places, but it's a lot of fun. And I'm really excited for what CSG is doing because I have one of the cards, actually Jeter graded card behind me. They have, people tell you like the best holders. I'll pull it down. Like these crystal clear, beautiful holders, and the cards just look amazing in them. So people really love that. So I'm just excited to see where this next year is going to take CSG.
For those who don't know, can you explain like what graded means?
Yeah, sure. So you see here, this card, it has a grade of a 9. It's probably, I think it's backwards for you guys, but it's a 9 on the label. And so grading is on a scale of 1 to 10, and it checks the condition of a card. 10 being obviously the best, 1 being the worst. In modern cards, you generally don't get like a 1. You'll see a lot of like 1 through like 5s and 7s reserved for vintage cards and pre-war cards, like a lot of the older cards. And those aren't bad grades for the older cards. It just happens like where they fall in the scale.
Sure.
So in this case, this has it's a mint 9, which, it's like, okay, there's a little like white corner. So it's like they check corner, edges, surface, and centering of a card to determine the grade.
That's very interesting. Good. I didn't know all that. I knew it was a rating system of the quality of it, but I didn't know all the factors behind it. So
yeah, those are the 4 big factors on it. And then beyond that too, it's like even when you send the card in to get sort of graded, they're also checking the authentication of it as well. Like, are there any alterations to the card? Is it real? And to make sure it's not a counterfeit card. And a lot of that, you'll see a lot of that with older cards, because the vintage cards tend to be more counterfeited than modern, although it still happens with modern cards as well.
You make a great point though. Like the older cards, I've got some cards from the 50s. And yeah, I mean, rounded corners and all that, because people weren't saving them, protecting them like they are now. And they're 70 years old at this point.
Right.
But even like a 4 from a 50s card it's still a cool card to me, at least, and to a lot of people, like they said. So like the grading scale is kind of funny. Like, like we said, older cards could have a lower grade, but still be very cool to have.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And they're hard, like I said, just a lot of factors go into like the vintage cards. The way they were printed, the way they were handled, the fact that some of them are 100 years old. Like, how can you imagine something being in such great condition being that old?
Sure.
So like even something that could be like a 3 could still be highly valuable in the secondary market because there's just not many of them that exist anymore.
Right.
Tommy, any other questions?
No, I just wanted to say thank you for coming on and being here with us and sharing your story and what you're into and what you're doing and stuff. It's very cool and it's very interesting, and it's nice to know that this is still going on and will continue to be carried on and handed down to the next generation. I'm glad to hear that your son is not only just a big sports fan, but loves the card collecting aspect of it, like mom and dad. So that's very cool.
Yeah, he is a big baseball card collector. So, and he's cute about it too. So when we're pulling cards, and if there's an Anthony Rizzo card, because he knows, he'll be like, "Oh, this is mommy's card."
You've trained him well. That's great.
Yeah.
But before we let you go, is there any place you want to direct people to follow you online anywhere?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Yanxchick, YANXCHICK. So it's pretty much my handle across all social media.
And I do follow you, and I do enjoy your posts. You have a lot of interesting posts, like the error cards and other topical things. And I think it's really interesting. You're pretty active on social media, and it kind of keeps the interest going all the time. So I, as a collector and as a fan of yours, I appreciate that as well.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I've been reading your blog for a very, very, very long time. So
I appreciate that as well. Really. So thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. And we wish you luck. And although it hurts me to say it, go Yankees.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you, Sooz. Thanks for coming on.
And that was Susan Lejudi, card queen of cards, matriarch of cards, the industry. I've been a fan of hers for such a long time. It was a thrill to meet her in person. It was funny because at the convention, when my guy asked me, who do you want to meet, she was the first one I said, I got to meet Sooz.
Yeah.
And she was so very kind. She's very busy at that convention, but she gave me her time, and I really appreciated it, and I appreciate her time now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear about what goes into like how the cards are put together and made, and I mean, get to be the person who's picking the image for the card. I mean, that's the job. I mean, I would think is.
Dude, I don't know how big
it's either that or you're a statistician, either one. But I mean,
I was huge into cards as I was a kid. I probably got 500,000 cards in my storage area here. Like she's got a dream, like every one of her jobs was a dream job of mine, to work for Topps in any capacity, and then to work for Beck and to work for the company now, and to do all that she's doing. And she's got her own card from Ellen and Ginter. I mean, it's amazing. She's certainly done a lot in the industry and for the industry, and she continues to give back.
I collected baseball cards when I was like 6, 7, probably through maybe 11, 12, something like that. So it was a short run for me, but I did like it, and I liked the back then, the trading aspect of it. It's like you get a good card, and then like all your buddies are like trying to like, I'll give you these 2 for that one, and and then you're like looking in the book to see what they're worth and all that stuff, and all that is part of the fun of the collecting beyond just having the actual card and everything. And
well, see, back in my day, we didn't have books that told the value. We didn't even know the values. And it was funny because like back in my day,
back then they were like, they had just started making trading cards, so they had no value or anything beyond that.
I started collecting in
not enough time has passed since 1940 or whatever
72 was my first year of collecting. Wow. Yeah, no, but it was like before the internet, before ESPN and all that. Like this is our best way to get information of the players. Some of the players I didn't even know were traded until I got his card the next year, and it was with a different team. Yeah. Now there's so much other stuff. There's so many other ways to get information. Card companies had to keep up and keep people interested, and people like Sooz help that.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I mean that's where you knew like what someone's ERA and things like that and all their different stats were because of the baseball cards. You know, it's like, I mean, yeah, it was on TV and stuff, but I mean, but like, you know, like if you said like what so and so's ERA, you usually went with the baseball card answer rather
Right.
than whatever the most recent, you know, game was. So,
Like for instance, if they had baseball cards for our kickball careers, you would have had like 0 for 3, and I would have had my card would have been cool. It would have been 1 for 1 with a run scored. I batted 1,000, scored a run. That would have been cool on the back of my card.
yeah, well, we're not making you a kickball card. All right. I'm just telling you right now. It's not happening.
We could.
Although, well, I know
We
it
could
could
because
be.
on the top site, you can make custom cards. That's the other. Custom cards is another very big industry these days.
Yeah. Well, just because it could be done doesn't mean it should be done. So, well, I would say we had a great guest today. This was an excellent show. John, you did good bringing someone to the table. You know.
I was so excited, really
Yeah.
excited to be on.
Well, where, John, if the kickball card becomes an unfortunate reality and people wanted to see it, where on social media could they find you?
They could just look up, as Sooz does, they could find me at Johngy's Beat. Pretty much the website, the YouTube, all over the internet, social media. Just look up Johngy's Beat, or more pertinent to here, look for the Johngy or Else podcast and collect our merchandise available at wrestlertees.com in the Johngy's Beat store. Now to you, sir, where can they find your information?
Well, John, they can find me on the twit at Tommy_else. They can find me on the gram at Tommy_else. They can find us on the tube on the Johngy or Else YouTube channel. They can listen to us on the spot on Spotify at the Johngy or Else podcast. And they can also check us out on the book, the Johngy or Else podcast. We have been this last week, as of this airing, sharing some videos from the YouTube channel. We try to put related videos or whatever we can find to guests that we've had in the past. So, for example, David Vox Mullen, when he came on to talk about his album Undiscovered, had a music video. So we have that music video linked to our YouTube page. So if you want to see some of these things and get to look a little deeper into some of these people that we have had on the show, definitely check out the YouTube channel and subscribe so that you get to see it as soon as it goes live.
Yeah, that little bell will go off. Ding. Yeah.
And you'll look and you'll say, hot damn, they've uploaded another video. Yes. I gotta stop what I'm doing, pull over, and watch this.
Yeah. And also follow Sooz on social media as well. A lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll and in relation to what I was just saying, we'll also we'll put that interview you did with her up on there as well, so people can see that. So, well, buddy, another one in the can. Good
Put
job.
a bow on it, my friend.
There it is. So, for the Johngy or Else podcast, I have been who else but Tommy Else. With me as always, the man on the beat, JohnG'sBeat.com, Mr. John Robleski.